Object!
And when it went bad, you cut these guys loose!
Your Honor,
You had markers inside a phony transport.
Your Honor!
You doctored the logbook.
Damn it, Captain!
You coerced the doctor.
Consider yourself in contempt. You don't have to answer that question.
I'll answer the question. You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers!
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Here I was thinking that we were all done making videos about the negatives and problems with the Coalition Gears of War games, Gears of War 4 and Gears 5. And despite covering all of the problems and issues with these video games down to their very bones, there is one more definitely worth discussing. And that is the game's main antagonists, the so-called Swarm. The Swarm, despite being pretty cool and intimidating in their designs, are pointless villains that serve very little to no purpose in the main storylines of these new Gears of War games. One of the weirdest things about the Swarm is that I never heard anyone mention anything about them. I never heard anybody really talk about them. I never heard anyone have any opinions about them whatsoever, other than the fact that they are the villains, at least we believe they are, in these games, and that is all. I think it is very easy to dismiss the Swarm as villains that aren't up to par with not just Gears of War standards, but not with the highest standards in general. For the most part, the Swarm are serviceable antagonists. Their design is fine, their presence and actions as villains in these new Gears of War games are not bad. But with that said, I'd say the real reason why the Swarm are such pointless villains is because underneath their pretty cool designs and appearances, there's nothing. As the Swarm are one of the most heartless and most emotionless villains I think I've ever seen in a video game. And the reasons why I haven't heard really any opinions about them is because there's nothing to really form an opinion about. It's like the Swarm are a blank piece of paper, where it's just a blank piece of paper, what else is there to think about or say? And considering these specimens are supposed to be the ultimate threat and evil in these Gears of War games, and supposed to be the most urgent thing the heroes are supposed to be taking seriously, how could it be that we see these villains that are cool and intimidating at times visually, and yet you feel nothing from them? How is this possible? Well, that's what we're going to find out. Now, rather than going into full detail, I'm just going to dot point the aspects and explain how everything about the Swarm could have been fixed and more focused. And of course, what important components are missing from them, and how these new Gears of War games make an enemy that players can generate no feelings for whatsoever, except forgetfulness. One of the biggest contributors to why the Swarm are so empty and meaningless almost entirely is because they are missing the important emotional component that gives them, their characters, emotional potency. This is called the human factor. To explain what I mean, let's look at the first time the Swarm are introduced, which was the Outsider village raid in Gears of War 4. We begin with Specimen Kate just chilling, looking outside a window of her village while James and Dell work with the Fabricator. Over time, Kate sees big shapes leaping all around the village, and over time the appearances increase, while James and Dell goof around unaware to what is happening outside. This is supposed to give the tension that something is out there or coming, but we don't know what it is, nor do the heroes. And this is supposed to set up and deliver the entrance, horrific, and heartbreaking moments that the Swarm do to the heroes. And here is how this introduction of theirs begins.
Come on. Mom? Mom! Hey, listen. You need to hide, and then you need to run. What are you doing? Hey, you have to Mom! Mom!
Now, having seen briefly what you just saw, what do you think is wrong? Well, first off, there's the fact that the only horrific thing about it is the acting and the editing. When the heroes decide to go outside to find out what's up, they get locked inside until this point of view shot of something very large approaches and attacks one of the characters. We get a quick shot of the shadow of what the figure could look like, and then it cuts all the way back to a brief overhead of the chaos in the village for a few seconds. Then it cuts back to a likely fight to the death taking place, yet we have no idea what the hell is going on, why the chaos is happening, and who this character Reyna is fighting in the first place. But with the superficial aspects of this whole sequence aside, the real problem behind all of this is the fact that as a viewer, I have to address this being as this thing and these things hopping around. Basically, throughout this entire sequence, we don't have a single protagonist or a single perspective to experience it through. We don't know what or who any of these characters really are, or any of these things, so it doesn't matter. We have this woman named Reyna being attacked by a large figure, but we know she's not the hero or really not at all that important, or at least we don't know she is, so it doesn't matter. We have this innocent little child right here getting kidnapped by some large figure, but we don't know who he is, so it doesn't matter. The Swarm are not introduced as people. None of the Swarm play any real meaningful part in the sequence. In other words, the Swarm are missing the human factor. Which means all players have is the external event with nothing inside it, which just makes this whole raid introduction scene of the Swarm feel like meaningless noise with very restricted shots. The only protagonist characters throughout this scene where we know enough to kind of feel the event of the Swarm's attack here are these three. Yet throughout the entire sequence, we never really see what the characters are going through, except for one of them's mother who is being attacked, and when the Swarm's raid attack is all over, this is the so-called powerful moment we get through them.
Mom! Mom!
Guys, that sounded like there were dozens of them. Hundreds, like a swarm.
That's right, the characters are not experiencing the Swarm's attack. They are not out trying to survive and fight back. They are just sitting locked away inside a large shed, and one of the characters' mother goes to tell them to stay inside, and then they need to run.
Hey, listen. You need to hide, and then you need to run.
Run? Run from what?
Someone tells these characters that the bad guys are coming for them. Someone is telling them that this attack is happening, and once again the acting is horrible. But not because of the voice actors, it's because they have nothing to act with. Because when you have a pretty big external event happening and the main characters are not actually experiencing it for themselves, especially against threats we can't even identify or see, most likely neither will have any impact on the player whatsoever. Don't believe me? Compare the Swarm's introduction to the Locust's introduction in Gears of War, that is all told exclusively through a human's perspective. Our heroes are all there, and over some time we have gotten to understand these soldiers as a whole enough to attach ourselves to them. Now, watching both of these sequences side by side, which do you think you feel something in a way you will remember tomorrow?
Hey, you have to Mom! Let me in! Let me in!
I am pleased with our progress. I understand they have located another squad. Our strategy remains the same. Cut off the head of the snake, and the body dies. We will win this war. It's only a matter of time.
And this is one of the bigger problems in both of these Gears of War games. We see a lot of these big and small external events take place throughout the stories, but we never get a human level sense of the characters we're experiencing them through, or the characters the events might or might not affect. Still not buying the importance of the human factor? Well, take this one last example. Towards the end of the campaign in Gears of War 4, we have this cutscene of the heroes who just won a fight against a swarm boss. And one of the hero characters starts monologuing that she is going to get her mother back and that they are going to destroy them all.
Broadcast this. We're getting my mother back. Then we're burning your goddamn hide to the fucking ground!
And then... the issue is that after this kind of big dramatic moment is over, the game just fades away into the very next scene, without seeing any reaction from the characters. We never see anything like one or two of the heroes being like, yeah, let's finish this fight, or it's okay, everything is going to be alright, or so what are we going to do next, etc. We never experienced this moment from anyone's perspective, and for that reason, even though visually it seems to be a powerful moment in itself, players don't feel that way. Because we as a viewer are not being guided towards a feeling through character. We don't feel anything from the swarm and their actions.
What's a safe distance?
Keep running! Maybe we'll find out!
Okay, fuel tank.
Exploded.
Control room destroyed. We fly?
Interesting.
Oh shit! Take out that snatcher!
That what?
Snatcher! It's what we... forget it. Just shoot the goddamn thing.
Oh shit, quiet. Don't move. What was that? A berserker. She can hear us. She can smell us.
Oh man, we're fucked! We're fucked! I'm getting out of here!
Fuel us!
Oh my god.
Control, this is Delta. We have a berserker in the vicinity. Please advise.
Hold your fire, Delta. Standard weapons won't work.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Another reason being why the Swarm are hollow, forgettable villains is because they don't have an all-encompassing feeling that would make them be something specific. For a video game franchise like Gears of War, which is filled with great amounts of different characters with varying amounts of screen time, in order to prevent the abundance of characters becoming convoluted and confusing, it is very important to build each character on top of the same connection that ties them all together in a clear way. For example, in Gears of War 2, all the characters we spend a lot of time with are constructed with elements like time and desperation and pulling off this one last chance miracle for victory. As in, we can remember these people and this video game with a specific thematic feeling. But in the Coalition Gears of War games, that specific thematic feeling doesn't exist. Where we have a whole bunch of characters but nothing that would really connect them to anything and shared in common. It's crucial to have characters and a story that ties things neatly together and makes it clear what thematic lens the player is viewing it all through. It's important for players to know what it is they are generating feelings toward, and that's why the Swarm are forgettable. Their character serves no purpose. The whole character of the Swarm in the Coalition Gears games carry no weight of consequences whatsoever. The original Gears of War games all had villains that were perfectly utilized and made sense. The Locust were the main principal villains. Their presence is felt from the very first scenes, and they have involvement in every major plot point and plot beat in the storylines of each original game. Each story made it abundantly clear that these guys should be feared, and then for 4 straight games, their power was never in question. They were always intimidating, never out of control, never inconsistent, cool, and more importantly, they were in charge. And we also understood why they wanted to kill all of humanity, and their relationship with all the heroes made sense. If we look at the Swarm in both Gears of War 4 and Gears 5, the same cannot be said. In the first half of both of these video games, the main antagonists are the new Coalition of Order government and the addition of JD Phoenix in Gears 5, which are the main driving force in both games. And both video games place the new COG in good positions to truthfully be the main antagonists. But the Swarm are not even mentioned or seen. Their presence is never felt, and we have no idea what the Swarm are doing or have been doing off screen. But miraculously they pop up, and now they become the main villains. As a writer, you really need to feel that your villain or villains are intelligent enough and powerful enough to have gotten to the positions they are in. The Locust and all fellow villains in company in the original games all followed this, while everything about the new COG, the Swarm, and strangely JD is so confusing, and everything is confusing and vague around them, which makes characters like the villains the Swarm feel like nothing more than an afterthought and not at all important, because the stories and writing are not giving any reasons to care, except that they exist, they are cannon fodder, and that is all. Despite the dysfunctional narratives of these new Gears of War games and little to no human factor in just about every place where the heroes have to defeat the Swarm, we do hear characters say that we do need to stop the Swarm and kill them before they kill us. But once again, the characters are not developed properly to explore it through to make the Swarm feel important. So even if the games tell us we are seeing the Swarm committing injustice against the heroes, and even though I guess we know they are there, it's not the same as being there through character. In Rom's Shadow, we spent a good amount of time going through Alima City, rescuing citizens, spending time with a squad of Gears and villains. And the reason we do that is so when we get to the end and the heroes are trying to stop the villain and his army from killing survivors, we actually feel what's at stake. We actually feel we need to stop them, because we have been through it to create feelings for the place and the people we're trying to protect, and the villains are a top priority to defeat. If you base the power of your villain that you say exists without properly showing them, making us feel fear and concerned about them, I don't think that's a character or villain we will remember. Not to mention, after 2 games in, villains we know pretty much nothing about. The Swarm are villains that do work with Gears of War's tone, but their relationship and characters carry no emotional weight whatsoever.
You think the Swarms hold up in that fort?
The what?
The Swarm.
That's what we've been calling them. That's what we've been calling them. That's what we've been calling them.
That's what we've been calling them.
You serious?